Hi everybody, welcome to or back to Building the Bookshelf. Today we are talking about a great one that is having a resurgence here due to Netflix. This is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. Now I know that this one has been out for a little while. Like I said, with the Netflix movie coming out, it seems to be gaining popularity yet again. Beautiful cover on this one. I will also try to find for you all the paperback version of this because they have a paperback version that has the stamped edge on it that looks like it's something straight out of Little Mermaid. I love a stamped edge on a book. So Remarkably Bright Creatures. I have read this one several times. I love this one. I came to the Remarkably Bright Creatures game a little bit late. I heard about it, I think, a couple of years after the book itself had actually been published. And I came about it actually in a roundabout way. I was reading a book about, or an article about octopi. That is the proper plural term for an octopus. My mother will be very happy that I got that right. We don't need to be censored on the channel right off the bat here, but reading an article about octopi and how intelligent they actually are, and scientists believing that they can hold a grudge and remember if they have an issue with some kind of sea creature, that they actually throw things and shells and that seabed sand and whatnot at other creatures. So I thought that was hilarious. Honestly, I have always been a little bit creeped out by octopi. They kind of seem like they're the ferrets of the sea world, and they can kind of get into any place and they just kind of creep me out a little bit. But once they said that there's an animal that can hold a grudge and throw things at other creatures, I'm like, okay, now we need to learn more about the octopus world. And as the browsing cookies do, then it led me to Remarkably Bright Creatures. So then I read that book and loved it. So this is also not an ad for Netflix, but if you have not already watched the movie, I think they did a very good job. As we all know, the book is always better than the movie. So I tend to set my expectations very low anytime there's any kind of film adaptation of a book. I was very pleasantly surprised in the Netflix case. Marcellus's voice that they have narrating is exactly how I had it in my head. And Sally Fields, she is an absolute legend. She can do anything, and she was a perfect Tova casting. So very pleasantly surprised. You guys know how hard it is when you have a character that's in your mind of how they should be looking, and then on screen they're just not that way. Any Twilight fans that were out there in the world, if you know, you know. Anywho, so Remarkably Bright Creatures, it is delightful. So one of the things that I really loved about the pages of the book is the portions that are narrated by Marcellus are stamped with this octopus image on it, and it also has his days that he has counted, the days in captivity. That has an impact right off the bat. Right? I have a moral conflict with animals in captivity because on the one hand, I'm so grateful to be able to see animals up close and learn about them. I know that there are animals that could not survive in the wild, and so they are in captivity, but it hurts my heart, especially when you're hearing Marcellus of like, he's on day 1342 of, living this life in an aquarium. So hey, it's a tough one, but all of that to say, it is a delightful story. I love how seriously Tova takes her job cleaning the aquarium. That's kind of where the book starts. It's this relationship between this woman who is cleaning the aquarium that Marcellus happens to be in. It's following their connection that they build as she sees him every day. And, it kind of also explores how you can connect with other creatures that are not humans, or even connecting with someone without actually speaking to them. So, she is going through her own phases of grief and is really trying to handle that alone, and is just kind of in a dark space in her life and figuring out what her next steps are and if she's still relevant. She's been doing this job that means so much to her, but can she keep doing this forever and whatnot? And then of course, there's other characters that come into play that she's interacting with, that Marcellus is also interacting with. So I really appreciate the themes of, hey, you can reach out to other people in your life to kind of lean on them. Yes, you don't want to be a burden, but all of us are carrying things and we don't have to carry all of these things alone. And then what those connections mean to you, and where your value comes from. So I thought that all of those themes were really poignant in the book. Of course, there are tragedies that are discussed. There's heartbreak that happens. I love the ending as much as it is heartbreaking at the same time. It is just, it's kind of a full circle, moment. So I think that the descriptions of, the area and the descriptions of Marcellus and all that are also really on point. So, the couple of things that I thought about and questions that I had as I was going through the book is, does Marcellus change your mind at all about, animals in captivity? I think that would be a great, book club question, or again, if you're reading this with any of your friends. And what remarkably bright creatures do you have in your life? I think that's kind of the parting word for it. So things to take into consideration. So highly recommend. Like I said, I have read it multiple times. It's another one of those books, once you understand the plot, that you can then fill in some of the pieces after the fact and, pick up on some of the little things that you might have missed along the way. But highly recommend from Shelby Van Pelt. I will put links below in case you haven't had a chance to read it yet. As I said, we'll try to find that article for y'all and the stamped pages as well, and would love to know what you thought.